What's up, everybody? It's another episode of Couch Potatoes. It's officially episode 60. It's a little weird because as this start, I'm talking to myself right now. The rest of the crew will join us later on in the call. Running a little late, but they'll be here. But we have a very, very special guest today, an old educator of mine, a teacher of ours. Ooh, excuse me. I don't know why I'm burping so much. Maybe because I'm nervous because, we're about to do this. It's another special guest on the show. We could say he probably had best fits on campus pretty much every day, and definitely the best shoe game back in the day when we were in this class. But without further ado, here we go. Mr. Lasmarias, everybody. Let's wait for him. Oh, here we go. Hold on. See, hey, how you doing, sir? It's good to see you.
Good to see you, Lewis.
Yeah. So
background, I can take it off if
no, that's perfect. That's amazing. I totally did not see it coming. That's perfect. But yeah. So the rest of the guys are running a little late, but they'll join on. Later on in the show. But I mean, we'll start it off. We'll kick it off. First
Sure.
off, like you said, amazing background, awesome pictures. But how is everything? It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a while. I'm trying to think of the last time we saw each other. I think my last year at Gage was 2016. Yeah, and I think you and Eddie visited. There was some sort of presentation Nunez was putting on. He had like a Kanye, like a giant Kanye doll.
Oh,
Do you remember that?
yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I think I don't know if you guys were running the video and the audio.
Yeah, I remember that. We're running around with the camera and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Um, that might have been the last time I saw you. But the question was, how am I doing? I'm doing all right,
Yeah.
man. Like, we're in a pandemic, but trying to make the most of it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of pandemic, like what's quarantine been like for you? Like what are the activities or what are you watching, kind of keep the mind stimulated, keep it going?
Yeah, so my current position right now, I'm a talent acquisition specialist for LAUSD. So what we do is one of our duties is to interview potential new teachers, school nurses, etc. So when we were back at headquarters in Beaudry, we're interviewing face to face, but our director kind of had the hindsight of getting everyone tech. So we have laptops, so we're still interviewing virtually.
Oh wow.
So at the comfort of my own home, I'm still onboarding and interviewing new school nurses and teachers.
Okay, cool. And in that case, how does that work? Because I'm assuming, well, I've heard, right? Because I have siblings who are in the current public school system right now, and there've been like lots of whispers here and there that they might be going online for this upcoming semester. Some people saying they're going to have like reduced classroom sizes. So I mean, in terms of your position, how does it go about? Like, obviously, you interview people virtually, but in terms of placing people, is it kind of like, okay, we kind of need to figure out, is it difficult or is it kind of running smoothly, as most people would say?
We're as far as interviews goes, on average, every school support administrator will interview 3 to 4 folks a day. So from our last meeting, I think Friday the 13th in March was when we started working from home remotely. And a good guesstimate of the amount of folks that we've interviewed is 1,200. So that's a lot of people. But then as far as that's placing them on the eligibility list. So if they're interviewed, they're on the eligibility list, they're available to interview for up to a year on that list. But it's a learning experience for everybody because once you're on that list, you're instead of going to a school site and interviewing with a principal, you're interviewing virtually. So that's a a learning curve for everybody.
Yeah.
And especially there's folks who interview from out of state. They're looking to relocate, but with COVID happening, and it's difficult to try to find a place to live, and traveling and all of those arrangements. It's eye-opening and a challenge at the same time.
No, yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, well, at least in my experience, right? Like, you're still going to school and trying to manage between like, because I've taken online classes, but obviously
Hmm.
the curriculum or the structure of the course was made to be online. But then
Right.
when you take a course that's okay, we're planning this out over like let's say a 15 weeks a semester, and you need to crunch that down into a screen or a curriculum that fits for an online type of situation. Yeah, it becomes kind of like a little crazy, I guess if I can use that word. So I can only imagine. Oh man.
Yeah, because at the end of the interview, some teachers ask, what has my experience been as far as if I've heard anything, if the virtual teaching will continue. Without a cure and without a proper game plan, we're learning as we're going. Um, so the teachers are at a disadvantage if they're not able to handle the technology properly. There's also the challenges of um, having to share bandwidth. Maybe you might have uh, siblings who you share a laptop with, and if you're have multiple devices, then there's the lag and all of those challenges as well.
No, yeah, and also I can only imagine like the unaccounted for distraction in the background of some kids'
Oh yeah,
homes. I can only imagine that going
yeah.
on. Oh my
See, the positive thing about Zoom is you can kind of have a background, but for us, we have a platform called GoToMeeting, and we don't have that. So yeah, I try to situate myself where there's no one passing behind.
yeah,
Keep that professionalism.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it's I can only imagine trying to wear a suit on top and wear them basketball shorts right
Yeah.
underneath.
Don't expose me, Lewis.
No, yeah, it's so crazy
No, I know.
because there'll be like well the semester just ended, but there would be classes where like there'll be a professor who'll be like, oh, I want to see your faces. And I remember there was one guy who's straight, chilling in bed, like with his laptop there, just with and for some reason he had sunglasses on. It was the craziest thing, but I'm like, I mean, that happens when you're kind of just situated at home in a comfortable environment, and you kind of
Mhm.
forget, like, oh wait, like I guess it's supposed to be somewhat professional interaction with a professor or something. So that's so funny. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, yeah. Because I don't know, there. I don't know if there's a like Zoom etiquette.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to say like a classmate laid out in their bed.
No, yeah, but like you said, right? It's one of those things that as we go, we learn. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if somehow some type of curriculum was developed for Zoom or online course etiquette or something like that for kids in
Yeah.
the public school system. Like, it's things are changing so rapidly right now. So I can only imagine little things like that. As funny as they may seem, like the reality that it'll
Hmm.
actually happen. So it's just nuts. But I was curious, so you
Hmm.
spoke a bit about work life, right? So I was wondering because I have cousins and siblings at home. What's it like as a parent? Having to parent pretty much like consistently every day. And I was also wondering, does that teacher side of you also come out every now and then? And you kind of like, hey, maybe I should give you some lessons on this or whatnot.
Yeah. You know, I think I'm on teacher mode. Like, it's a blend all the time where you want to be a parent, a teacher, a leader, trying to do the right thing all the time. But I'll share with you guys. Like, there was one instance where I'm in the middle of the interview. My daughter, Ellie, she's 6, and she was in the other room working on something. But I hear in the background like, "Daddy, I have a nosebleed," so I had to
Yeah.
um, tell the interviewee, like, can you please pause for a moment? My daughter has an emergency. So,
Yeah.
they're a potential teacher, and they have a little bit of experience as a student teacher and as a TA, so they understood. They're like, yeah, please take care of that. So things I haven't experienced before, we're learning on the fly, that sort of thing. Mhm.
No, yeah, and it's crazy too, because I mean, at least from my experience, like being with younger siblings or even with parents, it's like I think when you're in a situation where I mean, you live with somebody, right? You live with family and you see them every day. But when it's literally pretty much every hour of the day, you
Mhm.
almost kind of learn different nuances of it. Like you realize, oh, my family is a bunch of characters dwelling in in the same location, and I
Yeah.
mean, we're making it work. But yeah, it's so interesting that they mentioned right different experiences, stuff like that you learn on the go. They're like, oh, well, I mean, this is how it is, and you got to roll with the punches.
Mhm. And then you kind of have to look at how the typical school day, like how many hours are dedicated to what. So myself and my wife were working from, let's say, 8 to 5. And then I was joking with friends, family, colleagues that at least in night school, because when we get that opportunity to finish your typical job and it extends past that sometimes, then you gotta take a look at those flip grids and video lessons that you need to watch and respond to a prompt. Like as a first grader, it's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah.
No, yeah,
I
I
can
mean,
imagine someone who has a kid who's taking like AP calculus, like that sort of thing.
oh man, yeah, trying to
Mhm.
ask your parents for help. Like, hey, can you help me with this? And they're like, we could try. Let's Google it or something. But yeah, oh my gosh. But yeah, I think it's fascinating because I mean, obviously, as as serious as the time or the moment that we're living in now, right? But I think it's also kind of cool to see, I guess, the light or at least the funny moments that we live in, because it's pretty hard to kind of, at least I know for some people that I've spoken to, it's kind of hard to keep your head up. There's a lot going on in the current situation they're living in, but it's like the little,
Mhm.
like I said, the little nuances, little moments where, yeah, I am asking when my grandparents if they can help me with the history of so and so, this, and that, and they're like, I don't know if I could do all that, but yeah, I can only imagine. Like, oh gosh, um, but so I have some notes prepared here. We at Couch Potatoes are a very prepared team, but
As
but
always.
yeah, as always. But yeah, like one of the things me and the rest of the guys want us to know is like, so how old were you when you first started teaching, and how did you end up teaching at Gage?
Okay. Um, that's a like a very tiered question, because as far as professional teaching, I don't know if you wanted me to start as like a TA, but then
No, yeah.
as far as teaching, kind of like being the eldest of four boys, that's kind of teaching too.
Oh,
So
okay, yeah.
it's very layered. But I'll start with being a TA. So um, my very first job out of high school was a Universal Studios ticket seller.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we, uh, I don't know how, that must have been like 1998. Minimum wage was less than $5. So the amount of time that I earned and got paid for was gas money to go back and forth. So I wasn't earning any.
That's good.
My wife now was a TA in Glendale Unified, and she's like, "Hey, take this test, apply as a TA." I did. So I was a paraprofessional in Glendale Unified, 1998, 1999. And the paraprofessionals work with one-on-one with special education students. So I loved it. Like to have that starting point working with a student and you work with them on a certain skill, reading, for example, then you retest them and they go up in reading level. Like that was really rewarding to me. So at that point, I was at Northridge going to school. I was I was a TA for 3 hours in the morning, would go to school, and I was working towards my bachelor's in English. Once I got my bachelor's in English, um, I needed a year and a half to get my credential. Eventually got it in multiple subjects. Um, that was in 2004, 2005. When I was credentialed, it was mid-year, so it's uh, kind of tricky to get picked up mid-year. So I was a substitute in Pasadena Unified. And Louis, I want to share with you that there's nothing that was taught to me in a textbook that could replace the amount of knowledge I gained as a substitute. Because I don't know, I was a knucklehead when I was a little kid, and this kind of stuff, it's like uh, blood and sharks in the water. It's like, man, if this guy doesn't know how to manage the class, it's game over for them, you know?
Yeah. Oh man.
And my very first substitute assignment, I was really confident coming in. I was like, man, I was a TA for 3 to 4 years. Like, this is great. But it was a class which didn't have a teacher for many months, and the administrators and teachers were telling me like, yeah, there were a lot of fights, and there were like chairs thrown out the door and the window. And you know, I tried to do my best as a brand new substitute in that class, and man, I was out of my element. And as I left the school, just trying to survive and keep the kids in check, I was like, man, I'm never gonna get called back to that school again. I thought I was done, but then the principal called me. He's like, Mr. Lasmarias, can you come back tomorrow? Like, that was the first time like there were no fights. I was like, oh my God,
Wow.
I didn't even know, because from their viewpoint, I did a good job. And you know, it's a learning experience. I was like, I gotta come up with a game plan, like keep them seated. I need to create a seating chart so I know their names so I can hold them accountable. So you know, you gain that experience as a sub, and I did that for almost a year until I got the interview at Gage. Um, and my credential was multiple subjects. The position that they had open was a sixth grade math and science class, and got interviewed and picked up, and the rest is history. Uh, the following school year, after I had the math and science class, I got switched over to a English history class, and I did that for a year. And I don't know if Miss Burnbury and a couple other folks told me to switch over to the magnet, and that's when I got started in the magnet. I did teach because you were my student for history, right?
Yeah, history, I believe so. Yeah, yeah.
History, yeah. So I did history and uh, was it English for a couple years, but then I switched over to uh, science and English. I switched off with Miss Bernal at the time, but she's now Viagran.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if you hear Ellie. I don't know if you want her to have a cameo. You want to say hi?
Yeah, go for it. Hey, hey, Ellie.
Look, I'm gonna move here. Look at this guy at the picture. That's him. See you later. Bye, mommy.
Stole the show right there.
Yeah.
Oh, what happened?
Hey.
Mr. Good. I heard part of the story. I was like flying dragons. I was like, what are they talking about? How are you, Mr. Lasmarias? It's been a while.
I'm good, Bruce. I'm good.
I mean, it hasn't been that long because I remember I saw you at Northridge.
Yeah, yeah.
Like 2 or 3 years ago. You called me out. You're like, Bruce. I was like, what?
Yeah, I felt bad because I know you're like running the class. Go ahead, baby.
Yeah. I was going to class.
Yeah.
Do I have to wash it?
Yes, please. Ask mommy for help. Yeah, I think that was 2017, 2018. Was that your last year before you graduated?
Oh.
They won it. I think it was 2018.
2018. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think that was towards my end, transitioning from, at the time, I might have been a college career readiness coach and
Yeah.
integration coordinator. So I brought all the seniors we were doing college tours. And I guess a couple months after that, I'm in the school sport admin position that I'm in right now. But man, it was cool, like to see you.
Yeah. I remember walking by and I was like, that's not Mr. Lasmarias. And I was going to class, so I was like, I don't want to call him out. I was like, what if I'm wrong? I was like, I don't want to look like a fool. And then I just heard from the back, Bruce. I was like, it was him. I was like, that's cool. And then
Yeah.
took that picture. I was like, oh, it's cool. It was cool seeing him. It's been a while.
Yeah.
And I know you're a fellow Matador too, right?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Did everything there.
That's cool. That's cool to know too. I didn't know that before until I saw your post. I was like, oh, cool. I didn't know. You wanna see?
I want to ask you something, Bruce. When you graduated, was there still like some test where it's kind of like an exit test before you get your graduation, where you're given like a prompt and you need to write like a?
Oh, yeah. That's going forward to I think our junior year. We have to pass a written exam. We had to get like a 8 or higher.
Okay. Do you
Yeah.
remember what that test is called? Because I have a story about that.
What was it called? Oh, not the ELM. I don't remember, but I remember we had to sign up in order for us to like pick our classes and everything.
To pick classes. Okay, because
Yeah.
there was one at the time. It was in the early 2000s where we had to do some writing exam to graduate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then you're saying you had to like score a minimum of an 8, but what is it, like a maximum of like a 12 or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maximum
Okay.
of 12.
Yeah. So, you guys know like I'm a fan of basketball, right? So
Yeah.
the prompt at the time was, who would you want to spend a day with, and what would you do, right?
That's cool.
So as a basketball fan, like I was like, I wanted to create some sort of analogy to the GOAT baller, and then to my future profession. Like I wanted to be a teacher, so obviously I was talking about Michael Jordan. Some of the details that I was saying there was, MJ's a natural leader. He makes the people around him better as a teammate. Those leadership qualities also translate to teachers, where you're kind of coaching your players who are the students, and the team is only successful when everyone is cohesive. So I was a little bit more eloquent when I was writing that. When you mentioned the number 8, I was like, oh man, like I wrote that, and I remember I was really proud of myself. I got like a maximum score of a 12. I was like, yeah.
Nice.
But then the dude who was next to me, he's like, man, I wrote about Bart Simpson. I don't think
What?
Yeah.
Oh man, he said
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. A lot of good memories at Northridge.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a fun campus, fun environment to be in.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when they added the dorms and everything. I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah, because when I was there, it was still kind of recovering from the quake. So
yeah,
those bungalow style classes that they have on campus to expand in like middle school and high school. That's how it was at Northridge for certain sections. When I returned, like there was a full gym, like there were buildings all over the place. So it was eye opening.
I'm curious now. Not you mentioned Michael Jordan. Some people argue he's the GOAT. Some people argue he's one of the GOATs. People debate here and there. I wanted to know, did you get a chance to see the Last Dance, the documentary series?
I did, yeah. And I don't know if it was set up in a way where they would show 2 episodes per week. But then I didn't have that ESPN Plus, so I don't know if they were able to watch it straight in its entirety. But I look forward to that, man. Like when it would come up on like Sunday nights, I was like, oh man, I'm ready. get showered, and I watched the first 2 episodes with my daughter, but then my wife was like, "Hey, I wanted to watch it too." I was like, "Yeah, I don't mind watching it over again." Like, it was cool because um, it brought me back. It was nostalgic. It brought me back to that time I watched him as a kid, and it's completely different because kids nowadays have access to YouTube, but you I don't think all the games are televised, and it's completely different when you're experiencing it live and you're
Mm.
growing and seeing it at the same time. So there someone brought up to me that there are generational goats. So if there's a young kid who only saw Kobe and they didn't see MJ, of course they're gonna say
Kobe.
Kobe's the goat or
Yeah.
LeBron's the goat because people in the past would say Chamberlain or Russell would be their greatest of all time, but I didn't see them. I only saw the MJ era, but given the numbers that they provided, like the statistics and all the championships that they won, like you got to put them in your top 10
Yeah.
out of default. But I can't personally vouch for like the eye test. Is completely different from
Yeah.
someone looking at it like a stat, like a piece of paper. Yeah. So MJ number one. A lot of people say LeBron's number two. I have to disagree. Respectfully disagree. We got to go with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar at number two. 6 championships. UCLA they removed the rule of dunking for him. How crazy is that?
Oh, what? I didn't know
Yeah. Did you not know that?
I had no idea. That's crazy.
Yeah, and then number one scorer in the NBA, Skyhook, unstoppable. All these people try to replicate it, you can't. Um, yeah, and then the impact too. Like he was in that um, group working with like Muhammad Ali, Bill Russell to make the social change. So that impact as well. LeBron is doing those same things, but the eye test, the heart test, the numbers. Um, Honestly, I would put LeBron in the 5 to 7 range as far as like top.
Ooh, sparking controversy
Yeah,
already.
as an old head, yeah, as an
Yeah.
old head. I'll go from like 1 to 7. So Jordan, Kareem, Magic, number 3, and that's another argument that I have. So
Mm.
I debate with the younger folks who say Kobe is the number 1 Laker. I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this. I love Kobe,
Yeah.
but Magic is the number 1 Laker of all time, hands down. Same amount of championships, same amount of championships. The other thing that you can take a look at is Finals MVPs, right? So I want to say Magic has 3, Kobe has 2 because of Shaq. Shaq had the 3 out of his 5. So yeah, Magic would say something like put Kobe on a pedestal, but eye test, heart test, Magic's the number 1 Laker of all time.
Some people are gonna be like, blasphemy. How can you say that?
I was gonna say like I was gonna plug Couch Potatoes, like hey, watch this episode, but I don't want you guys to lose fans, you know. Agree to
That's
disagree.
the first time I hear this,
Yeah.
man. Dang, someone putting Kobe at the bottom.
No, not at the bottom.
Whoa,
Not at the bottom,
whoa.
but no, I'm not saying at the
Switching
bottom.
your words, whoa.
Not number 1. Not number 1.
No, okay, because I'm in like fantasy hoop leagues where I shot that out to friends who I respect as far as basketball and NBA minds are concerned, right? We agree MJ's number 1. If we want to compare our number 2s, we have Kareem and Kobe. So Kobe has 5 chips, Kareem has 6. He has NCAA titles. He's the number 1 scorer. So he's number 2, man. He's number 2.
Yeah, it's a fair argument. No, I totally get it. And it's funny. It's funny that you mentioned, right, like the eye test, right? And because, I mean, I'm not going to say I've always been the biggest NBA or basketball fan, but
Yeah.
I've always been interested in stories, right? Like the story of MJ has always fascinated me. And if anything, like I know for sure players growing up, who I always like when I had access, I would go to YouTube. I would search up Dennis Rodman,
Yeah,
Penny Hardaway,
love him.
um,
Love Rodman.
Allen AI, Allen
Ooh,
Iverson.
yeah.
Always, I would always search them up. But yeah, but like I know for sure this documentary, this series made me appreciate Rodman so much more. Like I've
Hmm.
always loved him, but like just seeing his ability to just turn it on, or
Hmm.
turn like, or when he needed to just like let it go, he would let go. But he was always on it. But it's crazy. Like we get, at least at least for sure my generation, right? We get the opportunity to kind of be able to see behind the scenes, and it sucks that we didn't get to see the actual live version of it, but to at least get a taste of greatness, if anything. I think that's so dope. It's so amazing.
Yeah. I love to talk to. I love that you brought up Rodman because a lot of the kids like to use the tech nowadays because they have access to all the statistics. Rodman is a perfect example of the eye test because he was a two-time Defensive Player of the Year. But then if you take a look at his blocks and steals, he didn't average more than I want to say one of each, right? But then his impact on like bothering the opposing players, such as Carmelo, like second greatest scorer as far as
Yes.
numbers, like that mental um, advantage that he had over him, which didn't allow him to score. Because kids like to say, "Oh yeah, Braun got the triple double stats and all that," but then like Rodman, he would have like no points, but then he would have 20 something rebounds, like no. The it's offense and defense. His defensive impact on the game. He might have not scored any points, but he could have prevented 20 points from being scored from the opposing bigs. So eye test.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. Love Rodman.
Yeah, no, it's he's definitely. I mean, maybe it's not as impactful as his skill was, but I
Yeah.
take a lot of how I play my style from him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some people may call me dirty or whatever, but I mean, as
Yeah.
long, at the end at the end of the
Skill?
day, if we win, I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. Hustle is a skill. Hustle is a skill because you might have a shooter, someone who could pass, but like your hustle, if you do those 50-50 plays, that is a skill because you might have the most talented player, but then if the hustle is not there, then um yeah, the game is impacted differently.
yeah.
I, I,
See,
I was a hustle guy too. Like I can't shoot threes well. Um, I love to pass. I love to rebound. I love to play defense. But I
would,
feel you.
would would you get dirty? Would you get dirty? Would you like
Oh
foul?
yeah, dirty. Yeah, dirty. Clean dirty.
Hey,
Uh,
if it's street ball, right?
yeah,
Everything counts.
yeah,
Everything counts.
yeah. So I don't know if you guys are too young, but one of my favorite players of all time is Larry Johnson. He's an undersized power forward, and the reason why I liked him, he was shorter than the other bigs, but then he just played bigger than how he was. Like Barkley was like that as well. Like they
oh
listed
yeah.
Barkley at like 6'6", but then he was like 6'4.5". But he would you know use his intelligence and his physical ability, and he had like a wide derriere, so he could like box people out too, that sort of thing. And I wasn't afraid to the scrap with the bigs, you know.
No, yeah. So see, Bruce, there's a purpose, bro.
Yeah, good. You just gotta control the temper. That's it. But yeah, you
Oh
uh,
man.
Mr. Lasmarias, do you still play basketball? Because I know we see you we see you shoot around like through Instagram, like we see you post. But do you
Yeah.
still like go play like at parks with teams and stuff?
The last time I played was I want to say 2017, and I was at my intervention coordinator position. We had a beautiful gym in RFK, which is in Koreatown, and it's one of the newer schools. So our gym was beautiful, but uh, with more, the higher up you go, the more responsibilities you have. So there was less time. Like my era at Gage when I was a teacher, like man, I loved it. Like I would look forward to going to work, if you want to call it work, because I felt like I was just a facilitator because um, all the kids were intelligent. You just need to find that spark that fire to see their passion, because maybe they weren't motivated to do something, but if you find that connection, like if you like this certain type of music, or hey, if you like this sport, and then you kind of connect it to the curriculum, then that's how you motivate the students. So I loved my time in the classroom as a teacher. And then at Gage, we had like an excellent group of teachers who would want to play ball like twice a week, and um, they would call friends in. Like I would call some of my friends and family in to hoop with us, and I really missed that. Like that was probably when I was most fit. I got the dad bod right now. I'm wearing a weight vest, like permanent. Yeah. So to answer your question, man, like 2017 was the last time I ran like games, like pickup games. Yeah. Nowadays I'm just shooting around, and it's kind of sad to think because with the coronavirus, like I don't know how you can go back to how you were without a mask. Like even with the NBA coming back, they have the money to test and maintain and sanitize. But then if you're just the regular person and you go to pick up, like you don't know.
Who's been
I
where?
wouldn't want to take that risk, because like
Yeah.
you might play ball and then you bring it back to your friends and family, and you don't want to put people in a position like that.
Yeah.
Ain't that the truth?
It's just gonna be a lot of alley-oop plays.
Yeah,
Throw the ball. I got it.
yeah, touch fouls, like yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh man.
Well, if if there's ever, hopefully, soon a vaccine, usually we go play at Salt Lake. So if you ever want to, just
I
pull
see
up.
that, man. I see that. I appreciate the invite. Count me in. We'll do a rain check. I'm down. I'm down to ball with you guys when we
Yeah,
can.
yeah. Whenever this blows over, because like we're taking it serious too. We're not balling, or
Yeah, no.
we're not trying to drag with a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah. Because
But,
if the professionals are taking precaution to this, like with all the money being spent on uh, all the steps, like you got to think of just the regular people, like without the billions of dollars to invest in
Yeah.
the protective equipment and testing and all of that.
Yeah.
It's
And
interesting too, because sorry to switch it up. Like I saw Kyrie Irving said that he is one of the players. I didn't hear it from his mouth, but then I saw like an article saying like he um, is willing to risk it all to focus his efforts on social justice, because we're kind of in a position where there's no distractions with music, sports, um, and we're focusing on just doing what's right for the world. Like, and I respect what he's doing. I really do. Yeah.
oh, yeah. And what's funny that they did that little switch up right there, because it is a question that we kind of did want to ask you, right? Because when Mr. Cortez was on, we kind of asked him, right, as an educator, how do you, or what is your, what are your thoughts, or what is your say on what's going on, with the civil unrest and the current, I guess if you call it, political climate. But
Mhm.
and then we were curious to ask you, right, not just as an educator, but also as a parent. How do you not just speak to students or other coworkers, but also to like your kids, or at home? So how does somebody kind of explain to the kids what's going on, or kind of educate them, right? Because the truth is, there's a lot going on. I mean,
Mhm.
it's pandemic, civil unrest, protests. Some people may call it riots. The topic of police brutality. It's there's a lot going on. So I mean, what were
Mhm.
kind of your thoughts, and how would you kind of go around in terms of explaining and starting a conversation with others around you, and I guess in this case specifically like your kid?
Yeah, yeah. Because uh, Janice is excellent as far as getting books to teach Ellie. Like we have children's versions of books that talk about Rosa Parks, Harriet Tubman, Martin Luther King, and as children, their thoughts are pure, and we want to keep it maintained that way. but now we should empower the youth to be able to think critically and help someone who needs that assistance. Because it's one thing to see someone mistreated for the color of their skin, but then now we're trying to empower and educate the youth so that they can uh, be an advocate for that friend who they should be assisting. Yeah, and it's a leadership thing as well. It makes me sad and angry that um, leadership should be doing more. Like I want to say certain things would be done differently if Obama was still president. Because an example would be like Breonna Taylor. We still need to get those officers
Arrested.
brought in exactly. Yeah, because where's the accountability? You know. Yeah, because if a teacher did something, um, actions would happen right away. But then it's not the same for someone in the police force, and there definitely needs to be a restructuring. That's why it's important for the youth to be educated so that they can be the new lawyers, politicians to make a difference. Because um, there are celebrities. I saw Erica Badu. She's wealthy. She's famous, but then she's like, we need the youth to be able to stay focused and be the new wave to make the change, because uh, that's where it starts, and that's where the passion is. And when Martin Luther King was going through the movement, he was a young man, and we need to youth to be able to recognize the situation and help everyone move forward. Yeah.
No, yeah, definitely. And and appreciate you, right, sharing that in your point of view and your thoughts, because like we said last episode, and I've also discussed with Bruce and the rest of the team how I mean, although our following isn't huge, right? But I know
Mhm.
Bruce said, like, he told me once, like, even if it's just one person whose mind or heart we can touch with words, and not necessarily changing political views or anything, but like I always say, the importance of why and understanding history and
Mhm.
understanding the movement and then why we're seeing what we're seeing now. Because anybody could easily be like, oh, well, it's just a bunch of angry people. Well, it's important to know, why is someone so angry? Why is someone so hurt? What is causing this uproar? And it'd be one thing if it's like, oh, this is the first time we've seen this in so many years. But when it's a consistent thing, it's a consistent tragic event that occurs,
Mhm.
almost like a pandemic, right? It's something that's consistently happening and affecting not just the nation but around the world. It's like, okay, I get why, I understand why. And I guess it brings to mind, like, I don't know if you guys got a chance to see, I mean, if I guess if you could call it a comedy special, but I know Dave Chappelle released some footage of something that he did.
Mhm.
I mean, there are jokes interlaced here and there, but
Mhm.
really, at least what I took, it was somebody who was really just speaking from the heart, really
Yeah.
just being vocal about what was going on within their mind and in their soul and their heart, what they thought. I mean, but did you get a chance to see that? I think it's called 846, right? If I'm correct.
Yeah, I did see it. I did not see it in its entirety, but I saw little clips,
Yeah.
and uh, I can't remember at the moment, but it was good for Chappelle to speak on these difficult topics, because I was a fan of his when he was at the top of his game, like in the early 2000s, the Chappelle Show,
Chappelle,
man.
sorry.
Yeah, yeah. And then for him to walk away at the top of his popularity, just to keep sane, and for him to come back out and to speak on difficult topics, like I really respect that. And yeah, I wish like he can do more positive work.
No, yeah, and it's crazy too. I think, because yeah, I definitely feel, at least for me personally, I feel like Dave Chappelle is definitely one of those voices that you kind of do want to hear in the
Mm-hmm.
moment, and almost some people kind of say they expect to hear something, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I like how he says that. I'm butchering what he stated, but I know around the point of not letting celebrity overshadow all the work that and he refers to the streets, and in this case, really the people, right? That
Mhm.
whether you and me, the work that we've been doing to promote change, to create change, really. And but I like that he said that. And then, but obviously he jokes around and stuff. But I think it's so powerful because you can tell. Obviously, it's not. I know if we're looking at it from like a comedy special review point, it's not polished, it's not perfect. But I
Mhm.
think if anything, it's powerful as to what he says throughout. And but yeah, but and then if there's one thing I don't know if you said it or if somebody else said it, but I know he said something along the lines of, "I shouldn't be Dave Chappelle to survive a police interaction."
Mhm.
And I thought when he said that, I was like, "Wow, like that's." I mean, as sad as that is, like it's true. It's a reality. Like, why should I be a top tier, like world renowned celebrity superstar to avoid death in what should be a typical, A to B interaction? Okay, there's a problem. All right, cool, resolved, and head my way. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think seeing things like that definitely, and then I would hope motivate the youth to keep going, to voice. Then, like you said, right, the youth, like it's us that we kind of have to get this steamroll going, keep it going, keep it going, keep it
Yeah,
going.
going, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, like on social media, I see a lot of people, which is excellent, where they might not have the money to donate, but then they're signing petitions, making calls, sharing information with others to be able to, if they're not able to protest at the front lines, at least be able to make an impact in another way. Yeah. So that's the power of social media. Because in the riots in the early 90s for Rodney King, like I was a little kid, and we would see things on the news and leave it at that. But then you can easily pick up your phone, communicate valuable information to other people, like uh, Sean King, for example. I don't know if you
Oh yeah,
guys follow his work, but I think it's beautiful what he's doing because he has the connections with celebrities and they use their platforms to educate everyone. But also, if there's something negative being done, like um, there was something I saw where a woman was racist to another lady in, I want to say Torrance, and then he was able to share that on his platform, use the celebrities to try to find out who that racist person was, use his grassroots law connection with lawyers to
oh
take action to that person. So that's really powerful. Another person to NBA fan going back, Steven Jackson. He was the
mm, yeah,
twin of George Floyd. I love that. Like,
Yeah.
because when I saw George Floyd, I was like, man, this guy really looks like Steven Jackson. And then to see later on after he was uh, viciously murdered, like it's beautiful that even after George Floyd was buried, like Steven Jackson is still being an advocate to do what's right, like equity, because yeah, things like that should not be happening at all, especially in America. Like, in the Philippines, it's different, and I would see things like videos from Mexico where the cartel would could easily just murder someone, like and get away with it. Like certain things like that would happen in the Philippines, but it's being filmed in America, and it should not be happening anywhere in the world. And there definitely needs to be a change.
no, yeah, and again, right, it's we spoke about, I think, a while back. We had a conversation. The idea, there's a lot of people who say, "Oh, when is the change going to come? When is it going to happen?" Obviously, one would love for it to be an overnight thing, like, oh, boom, pow, like things have changed. But like you said, right, it's just it's a almost like a generational thing. It's like if we don't get it done, then we have to make sure that the next generation's prepared to keep
Mhm.
the momentum going. And I know
Mhm.
I've seen a lot on Twitter and Instagram, like even though if on the news you see less and less of the George Floyd case or the protest being televised, if you see less of it, it doesn't mean that it's over. It just
Mhm.
means, it's maybe it just hasn't piqued their interest. But for sure, like the movement is still going. The movement is still strong, and it's only a matter of just keeping it going. Because if there's really no stopping now. And I think I don't know if it was Dave Chappelle, somebody else who said this could be the moment that we actually see a huge change. And you see it now, right? Whether it's policy changes or, different things in different states, but it could be the moment that we have, or I guess if we would compare it to the era of Martin Luther King, where you see a civil rights bill signed, or our version of that, right? So, I mean, but again, it requires work. It requires just keeping the train going, keeping it moving. And yeah, no, but I mean, I don't know, Bruce, did you have any
Oh
further
yeah,
thoughts as well?
like Mr.
Hold on,
Lasmarias
let me get. Go ahead, Bruce.
like Mr. Lasmarias said, we have an advantage because we have social media, so we could all, share petitions. We could share GoFundmes. We could share, just information. And I think that's the most valuable thing that I saw that everyone was taking advantage of, like during like the recent, George Floyd killing. I think the only sad part was that after like a week or two, like it started dying down.
Yeah.
I still see people post, but not as much as when it like first happened. And so, I mean, I just hope people, even though they're not posting anymore, they still contribute by making the calls, by doing petitions, by donating if they can. But yeah, like you said, we have that advantage. We have social media. We could send out information more, and we could actually, I think, we could make change happen. Maybe not, like you said, fast, but we could make it happen.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we got to keep it moving. Ellie, give us a MLK quote. It is always. Do you remember his quote?
Let me go get it.
I had it memorized like a couple days ago, but I don't know. She's a perfectionist, man. You guys are, if you don't mind me asking, you guys are like, I loved the episode with Mr. Cortez. You guys said you guys were 24 years old.
Yeah, 24.
Yeah.
So it starts with you guys. It starts with the younger generation, and I don't know if you can see Ellie here with her book.
People cannot be treated by the color of the skin, by the content of their character.
By the content of the character, of course. Okay, thank you, baby.
Yeah, no, and yeah, and the thing is, like it's easy to be like, oh, it's so cute or whatever, but really, that's what it's about, Like,
Yeah, that's where it starts.
Yeah, that's where it starts. Knowledge.
Teach them young.
Yeah, because I don't know if you have younger siblings, cousins, even friends. Like kids are pure, their hearts are pure, and sad to say, but racism is learned. So there has to be a stop somewhere where you if your heart's in it, it's equity for everybody, and it's not an easy thing to accomplish. It's going to take a lot of time to get equity for everyone.
I got just one more question.
Keep it going. Yeah.
So it's about your last name, because I know I pronounced it Mr. Lasmarias, but I think you pronounced it differently. Lasmarias. So have we been saying it wrong this whole time since since Gage Middle School?
No. It's supposed to be pronounced Lasmarias.
Yeah.
So my dad even spells it where it's capital LES space capital MARIAS, and that's how he has it in his signature. My grandfather did that as well. But then as a little kid, when they, because I came from the Philippines to here when I was around 2nd or 3rd grade, they would spell it one word, lowercase m, and Americanize Lasmarias. So the correct way is Lasmarias, but I roll with both, man. Like,
all right.
Yeah.
For a second, I was like, man, we've been saying it wrong since middle school.
All these years?
No.
I was like, everyone who follows us, who went to Gage, they're gonna learn today.
No. Because I'm 50-50 with it. I roll with it if you for the Hispanic community, Lasmarias, but like for my American peeps, Lasmarias. Both are correct. Both are correct in my eyes. It's all love.
Imagine in the class, like, these damn kids keep saying my name the wrong way. Like,
Ripping that textbook super hard, like, we could talk sneakers
Sneakers.
with Eddie, and we could start talk wu-tang.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. But yeah, before we take any more of your time, Mister, thanks again. It was awesome. It was dope to have you. Thanks, Bruce, for joining as well. And to everybody who's watching, thank you guys for staying tuned. If you can't subscribe, turn on the notifications so you know every time we release an episode. As always, stay fat with the PH and do my shout out. Shout out to Scary Poop Party, aka Alejandro. Shout out to Angie Rose Music. Shout out to Kira. Shout out to Zendaya. And shout out to all the kids who graduated class of 2020. Congrats, you've made it. It's a little weird right now, but you did it. You made it, and yeah, as always, stay fat with PH, and God bless, and we'll see you on the next episode.